Hey guys, today I saw this custom game, called Jump equals Enchant, W, ranks. This reminded me of the game we coded last week, so I hopped into it, and it really was a one-to-one copy of it. No, really, it was worse than the original. It bugged, sometimes gave you too many and sometimes too few enchants. Really, the only thing it added were these ranks. And so I grinded, and grinded. And actually I got a rank at some point. I called that a day, and hopped back on the next day, just to see. My ranks were gone. So you know the deal. Today we aren't just gonna recode the game, but we are gonna make it better. I will make the ranks not disappear, while not causing any bugs. So let's hop right into my coding lobby. And here we are. I have the code from the last video loaded up, so we can use that as a starting point. I also have pre-coded the full game, with the ranks. I have them commented out so that we can advance throughout the code, step by step. As you see here, the old code is working. I made it break to enchant, instead of jump to enchant, but that basically has the same logic. I also have a code for jump to enchant, but this is the code I explained last week, so we are gonna use that. So the first thing I did, was I added the definition, that included, the name of the rank, together with the color, with which the rank is gonna be displayed on top of the player's head. I saved that in an array, what means, it is a list of ranks. To this point the code doesn't do anything other than before, because right now the variable is just sitting there. But we will change that. To save future explanation, you can access an array using the format I'm showing right now. An array starts counting on 0, so the first variable in the array isn't represented by a 1 but by a 0. What also means the second variable is a 1 and the third, a 2, and so on. So let's move on to the next thing I added. The player DB value is a persistent value locked to a player, which you can use to save player data in Bloxd Custom Games. First, I am checking if the DB value called blocks is already existing. If it isn't, it will set it to 0. We track the broken blocks because that is what later decides a player's rank. Then we call a function named updateRank. This is a custom function, which I will explain now. So this updateRank function needs the player ID of the player it is supposed to update, and the amount of mind blocks the player has. This huge block of repeating code isn't exactly the same every time. First, it checks if the mind blocks of the player is over 50,000. If it is, then the new variable rank is defined as the 6 of the variable ranks. What is the 7th and last one of those? So rank would be defined as hyperminor, and the color yellow, and the code skips the rest of that block and goes on to the last 2 lines of the function. If it isn't over 50,000, then it checks if it is over 35,000. What would be ultraminor, in the color orange, and so on. Then we add a new DB value, called rank, where we just save the correct rank of the player. This one isn't necessary for this code, but if you have more code in the future that interacts with this, that value can be really useful. Now the next line of code makes that the rank is shown under the player's name tag. This uses the inbuilt subtitle for the Bloxd name tag. Just input the defined rank variable, like I did. I could explain this, but for real y'all wouldn't listen anyways. And when I now close the World Code tab, you can see something has happened. I have the Pro Minor rank. This isn't a bug. I just tested and made the code before, so this is still saved from before the recording. But this is the perfect opportunity to show you all how to change your rank using a code block. First, you change the broken block's value to the amount you want. Be careful. In code blocks, instead of player ID you have to type my ID. But that wouldn't update the rank. So then you will have to call the updateRank function. And look at that. Now I am a starter minor, with 0 broken blocks. Now on to the last addition I made, which is finally really linking the block's DB value with the real amount of broken blocks. We do that by defining yet another variable called blocks without a capital, as the old amount of broken blocks, plus 1 every time we break a block. Then we set the DB value blocks to that new blocks variable, and finally updating the rank with the new amount of broken blocks. So now we are done. When we now wet our broken blocks to 14.999 and update that, then, look, when I break one more block, I get the Pro Minor rank. What means we did it? Now back to the guy with the jump to enchant copy. As someone who invested his time into this, I can officially tell all of you, this was a 10-minute job. And his isn't even as good as mine, because his loses the progress every time you log out and back on. He says he took inspiration, but I totally think it just isn't straight up copy. That's all from me. Bye.